My dog's sitting up, and I have no idea why. So, welcome to this Tuesday version of Just Another Sports Podcast. I'm Kyle Howard, as you hopefully know by now. And we're going to go over this previous week's picks. We're going to go over the college football games that are on tonight, as well as the Monday Night Football game last night. And let's get some NFL Power Rankings. I'm just going to do a top 5. And then we're also going to get into my picks for the college football playoff rankings that are coming out tonight. I got last week's right when they came out, and I think that this week's are not going to be all that interesting, but we'll still go over it anyway. So the first matter of business is that Monday Night Football game last night was honestly a little bit more thrilling than I expected it to be. I expected probably a little bit more low scoring. I expected it to be kind of like a 17-10 kind of game. It's a little bit more offense than I thought. But anybody who watched that game, it was kind of odd because I picked the Chiefs minus 4.5. So I ended up getting the cover. It was a very thrilling cover. For any of you who didn't watch, the Chargers in the first half kicked 3 field goals, and they actually missed one, which they could have gone to the half with a 12-10 lead. Instead, they were down 10-9. And the Chargers in the first half outgained the Chiefs. I think it was 312 to 140. So they'd over doubled up their yardage. And for whatever reason, the Chargers were moving the ball a little bit. Every single time they get down the red zone, they made a stupid mistake. They do a hands to the face, they throw a pick, whatever it was. They did nothing but shoot themselves in the foot every single time. And, the Chiefs made excellent second half adjustments. Because I before the last drive of the game, when the Chiefs were up 24-17, it said that in the second half, the Chargers only had 65 total yards of offense, which was amazing, especially with as much as they gashed the Chiefs in the first half. To see them adjust on defense, Steve Spagnuolo did an excellent job of changing up the defense. They got a lot more pressure on Phil Rivers, and they forced him into, I think it was 3 picks or 4, it might have been 4 picks last night. 3, 4, I think it was 4 picks last night. And there was one that sealed the game, but if you watch that last drive, the Chargers got a chance. I think it was like 1st and 10 from their own 30, and Phil Rivers threw a 50-yard bomb down the left sideline, which was pretty cool. So and what was interesting is the referees, the player who caught the ball, I can't remember now, but the receiver who caught the ball, he came down inbounds with no timeouts left for 44 seconds, and they never started the clock. And I couldn't believe that it went from, it should have been more like 20 or 30 seconds when they got the ball the next time, but the clock never started. I think that the ref called him out of bounds, stopped the clock, even though he never went out of bounds, and a Chiefs player touched him before he went out, or before he got up, and he put his hand in the out-of-bounds line. So that was interesting. But that game came down to the end, and I think with about 25 seconds to go, Phil Rivers tried to float a pass right into double coverage and got picked off. So that was fun, and it was nice because I picked a little 5-team parlay for the weekend, and that helped me cover that one. So that was nice. That was my last pick I needed. So we're going to go into the new power rankings from what I've seen. So my top team, and I think this is hopefully the top team for a lot of people, the Baltimore Ravens, I believe, are the top team in football right now. Lamar Jackson, every single time you keep on thinking, man, he was good. He's done a really good job. Maybe he might fall back a little bit. They keep on just pounding away. They beat a pretty decent Houston Texans team this week, 41-7. 41-7, and their defense is playing quite well right now. The special teams is excellent, and Lamar Jackson gets better every week, and as a passer, a lot of people doubted his abilities to pass and throw the ball in the NFL, and he's been among the top 2 or 3 passers in all of football this year. I think he has just 2,000. I don't remember how many passing yards, but it's over 2,000 passing yards, over 700 rushing yards. And he's the first player in history to ever do that in a 10-game span. So that's a pretty elite company, if you ask me. But most people didn't expect him to be the passer that he is. Especially with a couple perfect passer ratings this year. I think it's QBR is just nuts. I think he leads the NFL in QBR, if I recall correctly. So I mean, he's also probably my MVP pick right now. I think it's him and Russell Wilson, and probably Christian McCaffrey are probably my top three at this point in time. With the Panthers falling off a little bit more, McCaffrey might get pushed down that list, but I think for now, he deserves to be up there in that running for the MVP. So we're going to go into that. And so they're my top team. They're my number one in my NFL power rankings. My number two is New England. New England's offense has been letting us down. I mean, even Tom Brady voiced his concerns about that after their game this last weekend when they only won 17-10. And again, the Eagles did have a pretty good. It felt like their secondary was pretty solid, but Tom Brady missed. He was overthrowing receivers a lot more than normal. I don't know if that was due to the conditions. They said it was pretty windy there as well. But I thought that Tom Brady didn't look sharp. The offense, and this is really cool. So in Tom Brady's career, he has always led. I mean, obviously as a quarterback should, he's always led the Patriots in passing touchdowns in every game he's ever played in, as a starting QB. This was the first game that he didn't. Edelman threw a touchdown, and he was the only player on the Patriots with a passing touchdown. So Tom Brady had 0, Edelman had 1. Edelman also dropped a touchdown from Brady, so that didn't really help his case. But, that was an interesting revelation. But the Patriots right now are number 2 in my power rankings. I mean, they're 9-1, they have best record in the NFL, along with San Francisco. But their defense is really their calling card this year, which is kind of an unusual way to think about the Patriots, but their defense is absolutely carrying the torch this year. My number 3 is Seattle. I have Seattle over San Francisco just because they beat them last week, and I probably trust Russell Wilson a little bit more than I do Garoppolo at this point in time. Their defense, it can be spotty at times, but I think that their offense, especially if Lockett comes back healthy and strong like he should, I believe that Seattle is the third best team in the NFL. Number 4 would be the 49ers at 9-1. I believe that their defensive line, it might be the best in the country. I think they might have the best defensive line in the NFL at this point in time. I think that they're a very well-rounded team on offense and defense, so I think that they're definitely a top 5 team. And then rounding out the top 5, I've got New Orleans. Besides that game last week I guess 2 weeks ago now, against the Falcons, they're really something about that team. They still speak to me. I mean, whenever you got Drew Brees at quarterback, you can never count a team out. I think their defense has played admirably this year, and I see them definitely being top 4, top 5 team. So let's go in now to my picks from last week. I went 6-3 on here against the spread. My 14 parlay that I had recommended for this last weekend, which I had Ohio State covering 53.5. I had, I had Navy staying within 7. I had Memphis beating Houston by 10.5, and I had Wisconsin beating Nebraska by 14.5. Wisconsin covered. I think they won by 16, and Memphis covered 10.5. I think they won by 25, 18, something like that. 45 to 20. It was 45 to 20 or something like that, or 45 to 28, something like that. Whatever it was, they covered pretty handily, even though that game was actually, like, at the second half, they were down. But they just destroyed them. But Ohio State didn't cover, and that was kind of a precarious pick. I mean, I still kind of stand behind it because they were 8-1 against the spread coming in, but they really went to the reserves, second and third strings very early in that game. And Rutgers, I mean, had a couple goal line stands against, Ohio State. So that almost kind of a fluky kind of game, but it was a 53-point spread is hard to cover. I mean, obviously they did against Maryland the week before, they beat them by 59. But for whatever reason, Rutgers, I think they only won by 36 or something like that. And then my other pick was the most surprising game of the entire weekend for me was Navy getting shellacked by Notre Dame. I don't know how many people really would have seen that. I mean, they lost 52-20, I think. And that game wasn't even particularly close. I think they were up 28-0 after the first quarter. And that was because Navy, every single time they got down, I think they fumbled at their first 2 drives, or 2 of their first 3, and then just set up easy score. I mean, I think Notre Dame in the first half had 30, I think they're up 38-10 at the half. 38-3. Sorry, 38-3 at the half. They only had like 190, 200 yards of offense. They just kept on having short fields. It was an awful game to have to watch. And I really thought Navy would be better than that. So that was rough. So that kind of sucked. I mean, Wisconsin did what I hoped they would do. They put Nebraska down, and Memphis did what they were supposed to do. So 6-3 against the spread last week. I'll take it. Not good enough for me. So let's get into this week's picks, so at least for the early, because I like anyone who doesn't like Maction doesn't like football. So the Mid-America Conference always seems to play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and sometimes Friday, and it's really nice because now I have football 7 days a week. Monday Night Football, Maction Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then I got just ACC Thursday, Friday, maybe some Pac-12 on Friday, and then you got Saturday and Sunday. So it's great this time of year. So I've got some picks for tonight's game. It's Tuesday night game. I have got Eastern Michigan at NIU. This is a tough one. Eastern Michigan looked pretty good last week. I picked them to cover against Akron. But NIU is a lot better than Akron. And the over-under is 54 for the game, with NIU being a 4.5-point favorite. And this is a really tough one for me to call. Just looking at the statistics, it just doesn't look like an easy game to call. But I will, rather than taking, I want to pick NIU as a 4.5-point favorite to cover, but I'm actually going to pick the over/under. I'm going to take the over 54 because it is going to be a clear night in northern Illinois, and it's supposed to be, at least supposed to just be cold. It doesn't look like it's supposed to be a lot of snow or rain or anything like that. But I've watched these games the last couple of weeks, and it seems like these teams are on short weeks like this, middle of the week. It's very hard to pick against the spread on them, but it seems like a lot of them are going over because the teams, maybe from having a short week the week before, the defenses aren't well rested, and they seem to really wear down in the fourth quarter. I've seen these games go over the last couple of weeks, so I'm taking the over for NIU EMU tonight. And then also Ohio at Bowling Green, and with Bowling Green as a 20-point dog. I guess Ohio as a 20-point favorite. And the over-under on that game is 56.5. In both these games, I think I'm going to take the over on both of them because Bowling Green and Ohio, Bowling Green's bad enough where I can see them getting beat by 30, but I can also see with Ohio as bad as they've been against the spread, especially the last couple of weeks. I don't think they've covered like 3 weeks in a row. They're 2-8 against the spread this year. I don't know how I see that game going. But I do see the over/under. I would take the over again on that game, just because Bowling Green's defense is as porous as it is, and I think that Ohio could win that game, 40-20. But I do see Bowling Green putting up some points in that game as well. I see, like a 45-20, or maybe seeing like a 35-30. I see it something like that, where you got two teams scoring at least 20 points, maybe mid-20s. So I see that. I see that this over, it's a tough over/under, but I'm going to take the over 56.5. So those are my two picks for tonight. So I've got Eastern Michigan at NIU, over 54, and I've got Ohio at Bowling Green, over 56.5. I have a really hard time, if you're more of a fan of picking the spreads, I'd probably lean towards NIU covering 4.5 against a pretty mediocre Eastern Michigan, and I'd probably take, God, that's a hard one. I'd take Bowling Green at home plus 20 just because Bowling Green is at home and they're 3-7 against the spread relative to Ohio's 2-8. They're a little bit better against the spread. I prefer the two overs. And then our last order of business today. Oh boy. Our last order of business today is I'm going to give my guess for the new college football rankings. College football playoff rankings are coming out tonight. I believe it's probably going to be LSU number 1, Ohio State number 2, Clemson number 3, Georgia number 4, just as it was last week. But I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon may jump Georgia. I don't know if it will happen or not. And then Clemson even has a chance to jump up to number 2 because they've been beating teams by an average like 43.5 points the last 7 or 8 games. So I still believe it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, just like it was last week. But LSU might get docked for the fact they gave up 600. They gave up 600 yards of offense to Ole Miss, and I think 400 of that was on the ground. That's insane. A championship caliber team should give up 600 yards to Ole Miss. So I think I think that the line on that game was like 21.5. I think they only won by 21, so there's a lot of angry bettors in that game, I think. So those are my picks for tonight. I take the over on EMU at NIU, and I would take the over on Ohio at Bowling Green at 56.5, and the NIU game is 54. That should do it for the day today. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, you know what to do. It's YouTube. And I hope that you have a wonderful Tuesday, and then I'll be on again. I'm going to make one tomorrow, and we're going to discuss a little bit more. I want to dissect that Georgia-Auburn game this last weekend because it was a big game, and I want to break down Oregon and Utah's paths potentially to the college football playoff, because they are interesting teams, and I see them being actual factors in this, especially because of the fact that Georgia has to go to the SEC championship game. So we'll get into that tomorrow. Have a great have a great Tuesday, and have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, and good night.